What is up, guys? I hope you're all doing well today, and welcome back to another Awaken video. So for today's champion showcase slash character guide, we're going to be going over Orakh. And he's a fire affinity damage dealer who can be really helpful in dungeons and really good in armored incursion, especially the green, seeing that he's the fire affinity, and in quite a few of the dungeons as well. So we'll start by going over his kit, and then we'll look over the stats I have on mine and where I'd be looking to improve and what you'll want to be looking for and kind of what gear sets would be good on him, and then we'll go over where he'd be useful in the game and give you a rundown on those. So to start out his kit, you have his passive, Fury. When attacking, there is a 30% chance to combo and deal 30% damage to all enemies. Crit rate increases to 100%, or 50% damage when fully ascended. So this is a very weird wording. I think I went over it briefly in a video going over him a tiny bit before, but basically the way this works is when you attack, you have a 30% chance to do a combo where he will AoE and hit everybody at once. Now what the rest of this is saying is if you crit, the chance of the combo happening move to 100%. So if you get a critical hit with him, he will combo every time. And having used him for quite a while now, that does appear to be how it works. And then the only difference with the Ascension is moving from 30% damage up to a 50% damage AoE. But his passive is very nice. It works really well, just helping get extra wave clear, extra damage on the bosses. It's just a nice little extra skill to have, proccing constantly, especially because he's one that you really do want a high crit rate with because of his ult, which we'll get to in a bit. His A1 deals 100% damage to an enemy with a 30% chance to apply defense down for 1 turn. Chance to trigger is increased to 100% upon a critical strike. So this is a very good skill, having an A1 that can apply defense down, especially on a damage dealer that can take good advantage of that. It is really nice to have the defense down on the A1. I really like this skill, and it works great. Not to mention, if you're working into crit rate, it'll have a 100% chance to land, and every single time you'll also be getting the extra trait attack in for a little extra AoE damage, which is really nice. His 2 deals 150% damage to an enemy and recovers health equal to 50% of damage dealt. So this is a pretty strong skill. It doesn't hit insanely hard, though as you can see at 150% it still can do decent damage. But mostly, this one can help you regain a lot of life, which can be really nice in some of the longer dungeons and in the armored incursion, just because he can have some self-sustain so that he doesn't go down as easily, and since you're building him for damage generally, it's nice to be able to recoup a little bit of lost health throughout a fight. And then you've got his main move, his ult. Removes all positive effects from the target, and then deals 200% damage. Damage from this attack scales with the target's max HP. And then you upgrading it gets you some more damage and then some cooldown, 4-turn cooldown. Not too bad. This skill can hit really, really hard, especially when you're building into crit rate and crit damage with really high attack. And then if you've also got your defense down, damage taken up debuffs on a boss or an enemy, this thing can do a lot of damage, especially in the later stages of dungeons. Like right now I use him heavily in my Tulpa dungeon farming, and he takes probably about half to almost 3/4 of the boss's health down in one hit, usually with this ult. On the stage 11, I believe, is the one I run regularly right now. So it's a very strong move. You can rack up some really good damage with it. And I really like his kit. He's really helped me clear a lot of very strong enemies in the game. And let's get into his stats. So I've got 3,400, or just shy of 3,500 attack, 10k health, 1k defense, 145 speed, not very important. I do finally have a crit rate over 100, so obviously hitting flat 100% would be the best, just so that I don't have wasted stats. But we're at 101, which is not too bad. And then a 176 crit damage, 12% focus, 45 resist, and then a little agility and 100 precision. So I finally have the crit rate at 100, which is really nice. I got a decent ring with a decent roll on it, and so I was able to get there, which is very important on him. My crit damage is lower than I'd prefer. Some of my other damage dealers I have closer to the 200%, and I'd love to even be moving above 200% regularly, but a lot of dungeon farming in order to get the rings and stuff I need for that. But overall, this has been doing really well. He still does a ton of damage, even not having a crazy amount of crit damage, just because the way the ult works, adding extra damage based on max HP adds enough damage to make up for not having all of the crit damage in the world. So it still lets you do a lot of damage without having crazy stat requirements. And I've been using him since he was super low level. Like, I've had him since early on in the game when I first started playing, and he's been a huge help the whole time. I think he's a great character, and it's about time I did a little guide on him. So in here in the gear, as you can see, I still have a few upgrades to go. It takes a lot of money in gear charms, but those are the stats I have with 4 pieces still only being at 12. The 2 I have maxed out at 15 are a crit rate ring that did get a decent roll on crit damage, little health and speed, which I always like, and then the sword, which has an attack percent, a crit rate, a little health, and then a crit damage roll. So 2 decent pieces here. The rest of this is mostly just looking for a crit rate and attack percentage and crit damage when possible. So I've still got a little more attack. I believe he'd probably hit around 4k to maybe 4,500 attack once I'll upgrade the rest of these, depending on where the substats roll to and all that. But I've still got a little more to go there, but even as is, it's been just fine. I do have his glyphs completely maxed out, and then his abilities maxed out as well, which I highly recommend. It adds a decent amount of stats. Then for gear sets. So right now, I run very basic sets, just 2 sets of attack gear, and then the others are a little bit cobbled together just because I was looking for the main stat and substat, and I had to give up having a set piece in order to get the stats I wanted. So it's just 2 attack sets, unfortunately, but attack set is good on him. You need more attack, it helps you get the damage of that ult even higher, so it's not a bad choice using the attack set. Other than the attack sets, one of the gear sets I would recommend the heaviest for him would actually be the cursed set, which offers a 35% chance on hit of also adding a auto attack, which would be your 1 here. Also doing one of those after every attack. So you hit someone with any ability, and you have a 35% chance of also attacking that enemy with your A1, which with him can add up to a lot of extra damage because he does have decent multipliers at a full 100% on his auto, but also that gear set could help you keep defense down on a target almost infinitely. And if you're not rolling with a lot of focus on your character like I am at the moment, having it hit more times would give you more chances of getting the defense down up on the target rather than him missing once and then that's it for the whole turn. You'd have chances of doing it twice, which could help you land the debuff. So I think it's a really good set on him. Adds a lot of extra damage, and if I were to get the stats for it, that's definitely a set I'd be using on him. But I think that and the attack set would probably be the primary sets you'd want to use. The rage set for the crit rate is okay. I definitely wouldn't be looking at using that into the late game, just because it is a 4-piece set only for a 20% crit rate. So if you need to use it earlier, if you have some really good rage set pieces, don't be afraid to use them, but I don't think that would be the optimal set to use on him. And then let's go into where I use him. So adventure mode, he can be useful, especially for clearing some of the bosses later on. I don't think it's his main place, but having the extra AoE damage when landing a crit can help clear waves. So he can be okay in the adventure mode, especially if you're having affinity problems fighting green, but not his main place. And same thing with arena. He can be okay, he can do decent damage, and he can hit people really hard, and the AoE damage can help, but it's definitely not his main purpose. He's definitely not an arena champ, but mostly I use him, and we'll start over here. So Armored Incursion. This one right now, I use him on my team, and I'm autoing for 200,000, which my team would be Brand, Savannah, Hector, and Orakh. And all 4 of these are really good champions, and they work very well, and as I get them stronger in level and get them better gear, this is going to go much higher in damage, especially as I get them tankier and get more survivability. But Orakh does a lot of damage and offers a good defense down. So he's really good in here, especially on the green, because he has affinity strength. You can very safely use him in the red as well, the red Armored Incursion. But I use him there a lot, very useful. And then go over here into the dungeons. So for the Bane Wraith and Flame Lizard, he's a perfectly strong character. He does very well here. The Bane Wraith he can be very helpful for because he does offer the extra hits to help take down the shields and block stacks and whatnot. So he's pretty good here. He's decent in Flame Lizard. Flame Lizard's not particularly complicated and he does good damage, so he works out there. Wrathful Flood's a little rough, being the blue affinity, and then the last two, easy neutral affinity, nothing too crazy about them, so he's very helpful here as well. And then the Arcane Dominator, Roaring Tulpa would definitely be his specialty. Having that large hit on the ult, scaling with max HP, can help you clear off the shield that he puts on himself very easily. It really helps pound through that and not have it blow up and wipe your whole team. So he's been a key component in all of my Roaring Tulpa progress I've made since starting this game. He's very strong there. I definitely recommend him for there if you want to farm any of those sets at all, or even just to clear it and get to the very top of it. Very strong. Ash Magisteria, he's okay. Neutral affinity, he still hits really hard, so he's definitely helpful, but he doesn't have anything that does, like, it's not special to here, like the Roaring Tulpa shield thing. He just does damage here, nothing out of the ordinary. He does a little extra damage with the AoE proc on the little side minions, but it's not enough to really wipe them or clear them all out constantly, so mostly just has the one big hit and can help you add damage to a team if you're lacking a good champion for a spot in the team. And Queen of Tides, sadly, is a no-go because he is the red affinity and he would be hitting weak the whole time and taking extra damage. Witch of the Wind and Gemini Dragon would be much like Ash Magisteria. I don't believe he really does much that would be special here in either of these two, but he would be neutral affinity, so he wouldn't be fighting an uphill battle at all with either of these, and he does a lot of damage. So he's definitely helpful in both of these. As you can still see, I haven't really bothered to clear these very much because most of the gear pieces I want right now in these days is all in Queen of Tides. So one of these days I'm going to have to go through and get all the way up to 11 and 12 in these. But for now I don't really bother with them too much. But he is on my team for both of them for when I was clearing them for some of the challenges. So he's perfectly helpful there. In bounty hunts, he can also be very helpful because some of those bosses, especially in the later stages, they have a lot of health. So if you're fighting a boss that's a green, so you have affinity strength with Orakh, he can be very helpful there. So don't forget about those spots because he can be really good in a lot of different areas you wouldn't think of. And seeing that you are able to purchase him from the event shop very easily, there's another purchase for 800 that should be available to you if you haven't already got him, so that for 800 event points, you can just straight out buy him right out the gate. So if you don't pull him early on, you just can buy him, and it's super awesome, super convenient, and I think he's a really good character. He's definitely helped me a lot in progression, and hopefully he can help you. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope it gave you some ideas on how to build and use Orakh, or if you aren't already, that you should be using Orakh, because I think he's a great champion, and he could add a lot to a team. But that is all for now, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.